on. We're going to actually move on now to section Q of the instruction sheet. I'll show you the other side of her. So we're going to put her aside and we're going to move on. It's going to start to involve the cannon. So there are going to be 20 cannons. Actually, let me show you guys my notes we've been following. This is part 18. We're going to go to section Q of the instructions. And when it comes to the cannons, we're going to actually, the first thing we got to do is stain the pieces that are going to form the carriage for the barrel. That's going to be the walnut dye. And then we're going to paint the cannons black. And the same way we kind of highlighted the stern castle, we're going to do with the cannon, but we're going to use the blue paint to highlight the cannon. Then we're going to assemble the housing when that's dry, and then we're going to cut the axles. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to put the little wheels on. We're going to paint it black, and those are going to be glued in place so you're not going to be able to roll the cannon. Once that's all set, we got to put the little brass pins with the rings on either side. That way they're the rope for the recoil of the cannons. And then lastly, we got to take the little pins and we put them into a block and we sand it into a wedge that's going to go into the back of the cannon. Next, we're going to do the posts. So we got to cut the pieces and we have to kind of file them into the shape of almost like a fence post. Then we're going to sand slight angles at the bottoms of, let's see, how many? 1, 2, 3. Have that slight angle. Then we got to drill holes through the centers, and we have to pass the same little piece of metal, like the axles, that are going to go through the tops. There's going to be a lot of drilling and a lot of sanding for these little pieces. So what we're going to start with is we're going to do the cannon, and I think that this is going to be part A of section Q of the instructions just because of the time involved. So there's going to be a total of 20 cannons that we should have. So first thing I'm going to do is get the cannons out. We'll get the barrels out first. We're going to do both sizes at once. I should have said that. We actually have 2 sizes of the cannon, but there's still going to be 20 total. So let's just make sure we've got all 20. And there's a piece over here that's, let's see, this is 19301. I think that's the paint, but you can see this. And what we got to do is we actually have to put a wood piece on here, but this is going to be painted again with the cannon, and we have to highlight it, so we can do that. So those are the cannon. First thing we got to do is, I think I'm actually going to do the walnut stain first, because I'm going to use the airbrush for the cannons. So let's get the pieces for the carriages. Okay, so there's 20 of those. These are the pieces that we're going to do in the other part. So we need both sides of the walls of the carriage. So they're going to be 40 of these and 20 of the bottom. So I think what I want to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to stain these. Actually, I'm sorry, we're not using the walnut dye. We're actually going to use the Sapelli dye. And you know what? Let me mark that in my notes, just to, as a little correction, the Sapelli dye. What I'm going to do is we'll do each side, because it'll be easier to do it this way, and then once they're done, when we take them off the tree, then I'll do the edges. of the carriage bottoms. And don't worry about the writing, because that won't be seen. Be good. So that way there, when it's dry, we'll punch them out, we'll sand them down, and then what we're going to do is we'll stain the edges if they need it. I want to use the primer, the Vallejo, the black, because we had used this on the stern castle and it came out really great, and it matches perfectly to the black. So we're going to use this, especially for the metal. We won't have to worry about it not sticking because it's a primer. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to airbrush that on. And again, those of you making the kit, you would use the paint from OCCRE. There we are. I think that's going to look nice. And I need my needle nose. Alright, so I think everyone that we paint, I'll put over here to dry. We got 1 down, 19 to go. So let's put this over here. Okay, so the cannon had some time to dry, and I like the way because we put the primer on, and it did a nice job covering everything. Let's see, we also had done the cradle or the carriage. This is dry. We had done both sides. What we're going to do now is we're going to cut this out. We have to file it down to get rid of the little tree parts, and we'll do the edges. So the first thing we got to do now is we have to get all these out. Yeah. You know, hands down, I think the part I hate the most about doing this is just taking the parts off the tree. It's a pain. All right. So that's done. So we got to go ahead and got to clean them up now. All right, so the sides are done. These should go a little quicker, only because we don't have those tiny little spaces to get into. All right, that's done. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through and we get the Sapelli die, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to stain the edges, just in case I don't want it to show. So I don't want to waste this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit on the edge of a Q-tip, and I'm going to go around and see where it needs it. See, because we sanded or we filed this down, we're going to put a little bit like that. That's all we need, just so there's no bare wood. See how much better that looks? So this is like, imagine a chef, like Chef Ramsay, putting together all the ingredients to make you a risotto or beef Wellington or whatever you want from Hell's Kitchen. Well, a lot of the prep work is really the hard part. And you know, they always make the losing team in the challenges do the prep work for both kitchens. And this is kind of like what this is, because it's like, yeah, it doesn't seem hard to put the pieces together, but you can't just put them together. You have to take them off the tree, and you got to file them down. You got to make sure that they're smooth, because you don't want those little nubs that are attached, that attach it to the tree, because that'll form a gap. So you're going to make sure that that's nice and clean and gone. Then, oh, by the way, they need to be stained. Okay, that's all of it. So I'm going to put this aside. So what we need to do now is we're going to actually start doing the highlighting on the cannons. I basically just put a drop in. So we get it into the brush. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to rub the brush, the edges, against the paper towel. And what that's going to do is that's going to dry off the sides of the brush. But on the inside, we're still going to have the blue paint. So let me take a Canon, and we're going to lightly start brushing on the edging. See how that's starting to look? With the blue, it's actually giving it that aged, kind of weathered, aged look. See, that looks pretty cool. All right, so now we're going to put these aside. See how that's looking? Almost like frosting them. It's funny, the combination of the blue is actually making the metal look like almost like not corroded, but you could tell it's been exposed to salt air for a while. It's giving it a really, because I was thinking the blue wouldn't really look right, but it actually does. It looks pretty good. I think I'm going to have to put some more paint on the brush. There we are. Okay, so we got the cannons painted. We got all the highlighting. We have all of the carriage pieces cut out. We have stained them. And I think what we can do now is we can actually think about doing the wheels and the axles, and I'll show you what that's going to entail. But first I got to go clean off the brush. All right, hopefully I got them all. All right, so we'll put these aside now. Let me see if I can start actually. Let's take one that seems to be dry, and let's try gluing it. All right, so we started with this one, and I had put the number on it. So I want the better looking side is going to go on the outside. So that looks good, so we'll do it this way. And this one looks pretty good. Let's see if this one is dry. Feels dry. So what we're going to do is we take that pin on the side of the cannon and they go into the openings at the top. And you kind of push it into place. And you do the same thing for the other side. And what we got to do now is we have to glue the piece that's going to form the bottom. So Let me see if I can put this. All right. So the narrow part is going to go towards the front of the cannon, and I'm going to put the writing on the bottom just in case, so you don't have to see that. So I'm thinking we're going to put just a little bit of glue on the bottom of the side pieces. Like that. And we're going to put this into position. So I'm going to put this over here, just like that, to try to get this to come together and set. I only did the sides. I think I'm going to do, instead of gluing the bottom part, I think I'm going to glue the top. So again, I want to get one that looks nice with no writing. Okay, that'll be that side, and so I kind of wedge it together like that. So it might be better doing the glue on the inside of the side pieces. So when it actually sets, hopefully you guys can. Okay, so the cannons had some time to dry. The carriages are all glued and they're nice and solid. And you can see the cannon still goes up and down. We actually have to put a piece in there with the pins, and it's going to rest on that. I think what we're going to do first is, then we got to do the wheels. I actually have to, I want to dry brush a little bit onto the cannon's carriage, just to kind of give it that old aged look. So we're going to use the black paint, and when it's done, while they're drying, we're going to work on the wheels, because we got to do the wheels. We have the axles, as well as the wheels themselves, and we got to paint those black. So the little cannons, there's a lot to do for each one, and then we also have to put the little rings on. So there is a lot to do on these little guys, and there's 20 of them, so it's a little bit time consuming. That's why you don't want to rush through this. So what I'm going to do is we're going to put some of the black. We're going to put this in a little container. We're going to use this for the wheels as well, so it won't go to waste. Just let me get a paper towel. We have our brush, dry brush towel. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the paintbrush and I'm going to put it in the paint, and I'm going to allow the brush to actually drink it in. So then we're going to take the brush and we're going to dry the outside on the paper towel. The goal is I want the outside of the brush to be dry of the paint and only have a little bit of the paint on the inside, hence dry brushing. It's not really dry brushing what we've done so far. That's more like highlighting, but I want to dry brush the cannon carriages only because I want to give it the illusion of age. So let's start with this one. So I'm going to go along the edges just a bit. And what I'm trying to do is not make it look bad, but I'm trying to age it up. So we're going to do that now for all of them. See the difference? Let me show you the difference between the ones that are weathered out and old looking as opposed to the ones that are just stained. And plus, to be honest, I ended up I want to cover up a little bit of the I had written the part number. I had written what was it, Q2 on the wooden pieces, and I probably shouldn't have put them on so big. So this is going to help hide those as well. But just a little bit of aging, and you see how it just adds the age. There we are. Okay, so those are all set. We've got a couple that look more weathered than the others, and the ones that are less weathered we're going to put below deck. Okay, so that looks good. So what I'm going to do now is we got to start the wheels. So I'm going to put the paintbrush into the water to keep it from drying out. We'll put the paint aside. Now we're going to think about doing the wheels. All right, so we're going to glue. I'm going to get a couple of the axles ready. All right. So some of them, you can see they're bent. So what I'm going to do is, you can see that they're using like a block, a sanding block in the instructions, and they're going to just kind of roll it. Think of it like a piece of dough. I'm going to roll it the long way, and what that's going to do is that's going to pretty much straighten it out. All right, now I'm going to get a couple of wheels, and these things are really tiny. All right, now we're going to take the glue, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue onto the wheel right in the center. And then we're going to take the axle and we're going to put it on. So the hole is a little bit larger than the axle size. I hope I got the right piece. Let me check out, let's see, the first cannon we did was this one. And I want to see if it's dry enough to handle. Or all we really need it for is to just put the axle on. So where is my pencil? I got my pencil. So what I want to do is we're actually going to put this in the little grooves on the bottom, and then what I want to do is I want to mark it off where it's going to end. And you probably can't see that, but now I'm going to snip it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a little bit of glue onto the end of the axle, and this is going to go into the wheel now, just like that. And I'm going to put that down, and I'm going to let that dry. So this is going to go on the back side. So now we're going to do the same thing, and it's going to go on the front one, but the front one is going to be a little bit shorter. So we got to put a little bit of glue. We'll get a wheel. And this will go in just like that. See how that looks? I want to make sure I get it straight. Now the way they have these, they're going to go on a cannon. They're not going to roll. So these are going to be locked in place because they're going to have us glue them to the bottom of the carriage. So let me see. Now we're going to do the same thing. We have to mark it. So that'll be right about here. And we're going to snip it. And we're going to do the same thing now. We're going to get another wheel. And we're going to glue the end and we're going to put it in place. I'm going to bring it all the way out, just like that. Maybe a little bit more. It's okay if a little bit of the axle is showing. It'll make it look a little more authentic. All right, so I'm going to put this over here now, and we're going to let that dry. So what I'm going to do now, the one that we did, we need to paint it. I also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of glue right where the axle is going to go, into the grooves on the side of the cannon, just a tiny bit. So we're going to take the wheels. This is for the back. I probably should have kept the paper towel. So we're going to take a little bit of glue, a little bit of paint. And we're going to paint the wheel, both wheels, and we're going to paint the axle. Only because we kind of have to, because once it's on, if we were to just put them on, the carriage would be a lot harder to do. See how that looks pretty cool? And I want to make sure I get all of the sides. I thought about airbrushing these, but it really won't make a difference. It's a lot faster to just go ahead and brush them. You just got to make sure you get all the sides, because you think it won't show, but I guarantee you when it's on there, if there are any spots, it'll show. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this and we're going to put it, let me put this over here. We're actually going to put this on to the carriage. Remember, we already glued it. We don't really need to move it around. And it's going to kind of click down in place. So we're going to make sure we have the entire wheel covered. And I just want to go ahead and cover the section that we had with the tweezers that was holding it. Just like that. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing with the front axle, because remember, we already put the glue in the front grooves. So let's just kind of paint it up. Okay, so now we're going to put the front axle on. Into the grooves. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually paint the axle. Here we are. All right. Now, we got to do that same thing to 19 more times. All right. All right. So I don't want to bore you guys by going through all of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what they end up looking like. See a little cannon, and I'm going to take you off the tripod. So there's a lot to do when we prepare these little guys. So you can see we've got the wheels on, we got them weathered, we got the gun barrels on, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do all of the other ones, and then we're going to move on because we still have a couple of well, we got a lot more things when it comes to the cannon, and it doesn't want to focus, of course. But so, my friends, this was part A of section Q of the instruction sheet. There's a lot that goes into these little guys. So I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this part, and until the next video, when we're ready to move on with the cannon, I'll talk to you guys soon.